Hi there, Sherry Rothwell here, and I want to give you a warm welcome and welcome you into the Sweet Life Without Sugar training. So in this training, I'm going to share with you all about the Delish diet. It's basically the program that I created for myself to help me lose weight when I had hit a place of futility, having already been super health conscious for a long time and also having eaten everything that would be considered a healthy diet and still suddenly packed on the pounds. And even, of course, before that, if you watch the video series leading up to this, has struggled with my weight on, at different times in my life for different reasons. So I'm just going to share the screen with you to do the webinar to walk you through everything that I did in order to lose the weight and to lose it in a way that is sustainable, in a way that is not a fad diet, so that I didn't have to, eat a certain way for the rest of my life that was in a place of deprivation or feeling like you're starving all the time. So those were things that were really important to me because I knew that if it wasn't sustainable and if it didn't fit my idea of what healthy was, I certainly would not be able to maintain it. So basically, the subtitle of this program is The Last Diet You'll Ever Do. And the reason why I feel confident about that is because it's a diet that actually heals the problem at the level of root cause. So any other diet that you might choose to go on may give you results in the short term, but in the long term, they don't, and they actually don't address the underlying health issues. So the beauty of doing this particular diet is that you really get to actually improve your health at the same time, and weight loss becomes the natural sequela of having, restored your health. So let's start with the question of, is this you? Does any of this make sense to you? Have you ever been had these thoughts? So do you want to learn how to get skinny while eating more decadently than ever? This is a big thing, right? Like mostly when we step into going on the path of trying to lose weight, we kind of assume that we're going to actually have to deprive ourselves in some way and not like eat the opposite of decadently, right? Do you want it to be easy without having to sustain any willpower? This is really, really important because willpower runs out really quickly. So if the approach that you take is something that you have to use willpower for, then we know that it's not going to be long term. So any weight loss that you get out of the experience is not going to stay off. Would you like it to be something that does not stop you from enjoying social engagements, right? That's another thing. If you go on, a special diet that is, strict, then you're never going to be able to enjoy just, going to a friend's house for dinner or having company over or going out for dinner, because you're always going to feel like you can't eat what everyone else is eating. Or you have to be that weird person that brings all of your own food along. Okay. Do you want to lose weight without having to exercise? Okay. This is a very confusing topic for a lot of people. The assumption is that in order to lose weight, you just have to restrict calories and then you have to exercise a lot. And it's simply not true. Now, I'm not saying that you can just use diet if you want to have a fit, toned body. Obviously not. But if it's just weight loss that you're looking for, you don't have to exercise. You simply have to eat the right foods and bring your body back into balance. That's not to say that I don't recommend exercise, but I'm just saying that it's not necessary. You can lose the weight just by eating the right way. And what I've found along the way is that I'm starting to actually have the desire to exercise where I never did before, right? Like I'm the person who is like, I don't want to go to the gym. And I keep having thoughts like, oh, maybe I should go to the gym. Like, what's there, Not that I have yet, but it's there, right? Like, and I've had urges to go running and things like that. And that's because once you get back into a state of balance, then the desire to exercise just comes naturally. So again, it's the opposite of like having to use willpower. And rather than trying to force yourself to exercise, why not get to a state of health that allows that natural desire to just arise within you, and then you don't have to force yourself to do it, and it becomes a pleasure, right? You want to learn how to let go of the weight permanently and make this the last diet you ever do. Obviously, right? Like if you've been struggling with your weight for a long time, it's something that consumes your energy, and you want to take your energy back from that and put it into the things you're passionate about and get your life back again, right? Especially if you're the kind of person who's been doing a lot of counting calories, fat, carbs, everything. I mean, that takes a lot of time. So if you can, you know, learn how to eat in a way that is sort of more like an autopilot without having to think about it, just like, you know, before you go to bed at night, you brush your teeth and you don't plan for it, it's not a big deal. That's how you want to get related to food and get related to eating in that way, so that you just always maintain your health and your weight naturally. Okay, so you might have been struggling with your weight for like years, if not decades. Okay, so some people have come to this call, maybe you've, you know, you just gained weight, but for some, it's been a lifelong struggle, and really it's time to do something that changes that forever. And I believe that you're in the right place if that's what you're looking for. Maybe you would have been able to eat whatever you want when you were younger and never put the weight on, but now you're not able to do that anymore. And suddenly the weight is just sort of slowly creeping on. Or maybe like me, you gained weight overnight. Okay? That is obviously traumatic, as you know from my story, not something that I was very happy about, and was really scary and stressful for me. So you might be wondering what happened inside of your body that would make your body do that. Or maybe you also haven't been able to lose weight since you've had babies, right? So after having babies, I was in the same boat. I was never able to get back to my pre-pregnancy weight. I always carried that extra weight, and I kind of just had accepted that that was just the way it was going to be moving forward. Obviously, I've since learned that that is not the case. And if I had known what I know now, that would have not happened. I would have known what to do back then to get my body back into balance so that I could go back to my natural weight. Maybe you've been dieting for so long that you no longer diet to lose weight. You only diet to at least stop yourself from getting heavier. That's you know, a major sign of you know, like just over chronic dieting, and really that wrecks your metabolism. So that's why that's happening. And this will heal your metabolism so that you don't have that experience anymore. Maybe you already eat clean, but you still can't lose. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing with you in this training why that is. And it's definitely not because you're not eating healthy foods. It's just that with this imbalance that you have going on in your body, it's making it so that even eating things that are considered healthy are essentially stopping you from being able to burn fat, even if you're getting good nutrition from them. And if you're here, you're tired of dieting and obsessing about your weight, that's, you know, probably most people. Or maybe this, like me, you haven't done that for, you know, all of your adult life, but, you know, maybe just in the back of your mind, you wish that you had a different body shape, okay? I would say that's where I was at. I was kind of in a state of not really looking at it. I'd given up on the idea of ever going back to the body shape I wanted, but it wasn't until I, you know, had that huge weight gain that I suddenly was like, oh my gosh, now I need to like figure this out, right? And so I had to spend a lot of time reading and researching and studying my own body to see what worked. And you probably don't want to do that. So that's likely why you're here, so that you can benefit from all of the experience and research that I've done to make it easier for you. Okay. So I was once exactly where you are. Okay. And maybe you're not even, never even been this overweight, or maybe you've been way over more overweight than this. But I can assure you that I have, it's not like I, you know, was just 15 pounds overweight. I had a significant weight gain. So this is me at 176 pounds on the far left-hand side of the page. This is when I literally woke up. I sort of tell the story like I woke up fat one day. This was the day, this picture exactly was the day that it happened. I was at my mom's house and I got on her scale and I saw that it was 176 pounds and went into a total state of like shock. And my cousin took a picture of myself and some of my other cousins on the couch. And I was like horrified when I saw she posted the picture on Facebook. So I was like, oh my God, right? Because I had seen the scale that day, but I hadn't really seen myself because I had this like aversion to really looking at the weight, I didn't even have mirrors. I mean, honestly, I didn't have a full-length mirror in my house for like 15 years. I saw myself from here up. It was only really in pictures that it really bothered me, right? Because so say, for example, if you look at the other two pictures of me going to the right, my face is puffy, right? And I've got a double chin showing. And that's a thing, you know, like even the headshots were like, they were bothering me because I didn't like the way I looked. And there's something else that you probably notice as well about those photos is that I look a lot older. When I see this picture, the one farthest to the right of the before, I literally see my grandma's face in it, and it kind of freaked me out. Not that, like, my grandma's very beautiful. She's passed away now, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there was something about that going, oh my gosh, like I look like I'm starting to look like a granny. Okay, so this is one of the things that will happen as you go out of balance. You don't just gain weight. When you have hormone imbalance, you start to dry out. Your skin starts to dry out. Your hair starts to dry out, right? You start to get puffy. And it's not just fat. A lot of it's water as well. So, and then you can see the after here. This is me at 138 pounds where I'm at now. And I am still intending to lose more at this point, but I am committed to it being a natural sequela of my health improving. So I'm not in any way trying to force off this last 15 pounds. I'm happy if it takes a long time. It doesn't really matter to me as long as I am, you know, going into balance, and this is happening as a natural result of the weight loss or the health. Okay. So like you, this is the kind of thing that I felt, because I was at a complete loss for what to do, because I felt like I was someone who did everything right. So how could I do anything more, right? Like if you've ever, maybe you felt that way, right? Like you do everything right. So if something's wrong, you feel like there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, so I felt like every single time I put clothes on, I would feel frumpy in what I was wearing. I could only wear like really like loose clothes with, you know, elastics on them. I couldn't wear the clothes that I really, really wanted to wear. And I love clothes. So that is a real bother to me. I don't like it when I have to go to a store and put on clothes and then I look at how it fits me and then I feel bad about myself. There's a certain weight that when I'm at that weight, that never ever happens. And so that's actually a big motivating factor for me, is so that I can wear the clothes I want to wear. Like I said in the past slide, I didn't want to be seen in pictures because of the headshots and the double chin, right? I was drying out, puffing up, and starting to look old. And I knew that the conventional advice for losing weight wasn't sustainable. So I felt at a loss for what I could do. Okay, I knew I could force it off if I did that, but only for so long until you stress your body out to the point that your metabolism becomes damaged, and then none of that works anyways, right? This is why people who don't have a damaged metabolism can be so judgmental towards people who are overweight, is because their metabolism is healthy enough that they can actually restrict calories and over-exercise to change the shape of their body. But once you have damaged your metabolism, that won't work anymore, and it actually will make the problem worse. I already suspected that it was, you know, hormonally driven, but I was eating whole foods. I, you know, used natural body care products. I knew all the sources of xenoestrogens, so the environmental estrogens that are toxic. I knew how to avoid all those things, and I didn't have them in my life. So I just was like, oh my God, like, what more can I do here? I also didn't eat any white sugar at all, and I ate very minimal natural sugars. So the amount of sugars that I would eat in my diet would have been maybe some dark chocolate once a week or something. I wasn't even, you know, a chocolate-aholic. I didn't have chocolate every single day. So there was, in my mind, I just couldn't figure out why. I got to the point where I felt like it was futile. I didn't want to go on a diet, so I just didn't know what to do. Okay. So you might be wondering, like, how did I wake up fat one day, right? If I was supposedly doing everything right, what's the deal? So number one, the stress of being pregnant and having babies. Just being pregnant itself is a natural stressor on your body. But then in our culture, there's so much lack of nurturing for women. And we don't have a special diet, unfortunately, like other traditions do, where you build yourself up for this experience so that you don't get stressed by the experience, because you have all that good building nutrition to keep you healthy. So you're a lot more susceptible to stress. I was staying up too late and I was getting up too early. Also, cybernetic mechanism. I talked about this in one of the past videos, how, when you have a change that you want to make in your life, you end up actually creating unconsciously some drama to sabotage it so that things don't change. So maybe, your body is associating that if it can keep you fat, then you won't change your life. Okay. The stress of deadlines, being in a business, that's never fun, right? Of course, we love, often even when we love what we do, which I do love what I do, the deadlines do stress me out. I had a long history of being a vegetarian. Okay, so as I'm going to share with you going forward, the vegetarian diet is really high in starch, which is essentially sugar. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So I had basically, set myself up to be susceptible to this problem by having even though it was healthy, a higher sugar diet. Okay. I started to push 40, right? All this started when I was around 37 years old. Okay. As we get older, we lose muscle tone. And then when we lose muscle tone, we actually also, our metabolism lowers. I thought for sure I didn't eat too much sugar, so it never occurred to me even once to think about sugar as being a problem and why I had gained that weight. I did not have any concept of the concept of healthy complex carbs being digestive sugar. Okay, this is why a vegetarian diet is basically can lay the foundation for this. Even if you're not on if you don't eat the white stuff, if you don't eat the white bread and you don't eat the white rice, but you eat a lot of starchy vegetarian foods to replace the proteins, then you are unfortunately eating a ton of sugar. Okay, this is when you have insulin resistance. There's many vegetarians that don't have insulin resistance that are not going to have this experience, but they may in the near future. Okay, because our culture, we don't have the same resiliency as our ancestors had. Our ancestors ate a whole foods traditional diet that was based on primarily nutrient dense foods, including animal foods. And so, with each generation, if we continue to experiment on ourselves by eating kind of weird and not eating the way our ancestors ate, doing all these different diets, even if they're healthy, we are an experiment essentially. And it's not that I believe that you can't be a healthy vegetarian, but you have to understand that you have to really compensate for the way you're choosing to eat, or you can have nutrient deficiencies that cause imbalances in your hormones. And that then once you do that, especially a lack of fat, can cause you to go out of balance, and then you're going to be more susceptible to insulin resistance. And then of course you're on a really high carb diet. So then that complicates it even further. Okay, so I had never, even in all my years of being a holistic nutritionist, and before I even officially was trained as a holistic nutritionist, I worked in health food stores since my early 20s. I'm a voracious reader. I read every book that you can think of on nutrition. And I had never picked up on this idea of starchy carbs being sugar. And the reason why is because it's, again, if you have insulin resistance, you have to actually think of them as sugar. Okay. If you're healthy and you don't have weight issues, then it's not a big deal. But when you do have this issue, and if you're watching this because you came here because you want to lose weight, then I know you have this issue. Otherwise, your body would be able to access the stored fat and you'd be able to lose weight. I had no idea that eating these starchy foods was just like eating sugar off a spoon. Okay? So even though I, didn't eat sugar, I ate a ton of sugar. Okay? Because I was around this time, I had actually stopped being a vegetarian and I had switched to eating a more traditional foods diet. But because I had this background of being a vegetarian for so long, it was so easy for me to go back into default of just eating like lentils and rice, right? Eat dal and, you know, rice and beans all day. And obviously that didn't help, okay? So like I did and didn't know it, you probably also eat too much sugar, even if you're not a vegetarian, okay? Because our culture is really into starchy carbs, okay? And those are the foods that we think of as being fulfilling, okay? So you probably eat too much sugar, even if you don't think you eat too much sugar. Even if you're sure you don't eat any sugar like I was, even if you're gluten-free and you avoid the white stuff like white bread, rice, or sugar, okay? Just so you know, gluten-free products that are out there are way higher in carbs than wheat. So if you go compare wheat with a gluten-free like alternative, that's actually way more likely to cause you to gain weight than wheat is, just so you know. All you have to do is look at the box of the things that you're purchasing. Even if you are a total hippie who only eats whole foods like me, okay, you can be eating too much sugar. And even if you adhere to the Weston A. Price traditional food principles, you can still be eating too much sugar, okay? Even if you're a vegetarian or raw foodist, okay, or vegan, you are likely eating too much sugar if you are on this call and are having trouble losing weight, okay? So again, I just wanna, you know, say that I'm not trying to call down vegetarianism or veganism or raw foodism, okay? I totally understand the context for which and when those diets are excellent healing diets, but they are definitely not the best diet for somebody with insulin resistance and who wants to lose weight. Okay, so how do you know that you have insulin resistance? It's simple. You can't lose the weight despite eating a healthy diet. Okay, so here's some clues that you might be having symptoms of that will confirm my hunches about what's not letting you lose the weight. So the first thing is, do you feel shaky when you can't get to your next meal? Do you feel hangry if you are, the meal is like, you know, you can't get to it somehow, like it's too far away, or somebody's literally like, honestly, the picture that keeps coming into my head is like, because this was like a normal for me, like I want to get into the fridge and somebody's standing in front of it and I'm like, I'm frustrated. I want them to get out of the way because I need to get like that food right now. Okay, so you might snap at innocent bystanders while you hunt for something to eat, right? You might feel like you're always hungry and have to keep eating constantly to keep your blood sugar stable, okay? It might feel like a meal is not done unless it comes with bread or other starches. This was a big one for me. Like I remember thinking like, how could a person feel full if they don't have bread with the meal, right? And also another sign of it could be a meal, like you don't feel like it's complete unless it's ended with some sugar. So some people have to have like, they have dinner and then they'll have like a treat after, or they have to have a piece of fruit after the dinner and then they'll feel full, okay? This is a sign of that you have hypoglycemia. This doesn't mean that you have diabetes, but it's telling you that you are moving in that direction if you don't change something, okay? Or if you start to eat even worse, you could be in the future diabetic. And I think we kind of minimize hypoglycememia. I think, well, maybe I shouldn't say we, I know I did. I kind of started to feel like hypoglycemia was almost like my personality, okay? Like for example, I remember my husband used to get really annoyed because every time we go for a hike, I'd have to like eat before we go, I'd have to have snacks and then we'd run out and then I'd be like, I have to get home now, right? Because I just had to constantly be eating. Let me tell you, eating like this is such a relief because I don't have to spend so much time thinking about food and I don't have to spend so much time eating it. And that means I have more time to do what the other things that I'm passionate about. Okay, so here's some other ways that you can know that insulin resistance is an issue for you. So you have one of those like tummy rolls just above your jeans. They also call it a mummy roll. And no matter what you eat, it won't go away. And no matter how skinny you get, it won't go away. Okay, that's a sign of insulin resistance. You actually do eat too much sugar and you already know that. You're constantly craving sugar or carbohydrate-rich foods. Okay, you have a lack of exercise in your life. Yes, absolutely, for sure. This does affect insulin resistance. The research shows that if you just exercise more, that you will be able to bring your blood sugar down. However, you have to make sure that you don't over-exercise. So I would recommend that you at least just walk every day. It doesn't have to be complex. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to lift weights or anything like that, but just start by walking. Okay? Stress, having babies, trauma, marriage difficulties, divorce, accidents, over-exercising, etc. Okay? All those things are a stress on your body. You could be feeling a lack of love or connection or community in your life. From the the metaphysical perspective of diabetes is a deep sadness. Okay? You might have unfulfilled expectations, like feeling despondent about the future, feeling trapped in a job or in a marriage. All of these things are chronic stresses that basically raise your cortisol and also raise your blood sugar. Okay, and make it impossible for you to access those stored fat stores. You eat too much natural sugar, right? You may have given up white sugar already. You don't eat white flour, you don't eat white rice, but you're still eating coconut sugar, maple syrup, rapadura, vanilla, honey. Okay. Fruitaholic, anyone? Okay. If you can't live without fruit and eat a lot of fruit, this could be a reason why you are eating too much sugar. And then you don't eat enough fat or protein, and you keep yourself full with pasta bread, potatoes, rice, lentils, beans, and yams. Okay, that was me. Well, I actually ate, more fat probably than the average person, but I definitely didn't eat enough protein because I had that tendency to be vegetarian. So even when I was like okay with eating meat, I still hardly ate it because I just had already programmed myself to just default to cooking things that were vegetable based. Okay, and the basis of optimal hormones for you is fat and protein. Okay, so there's no way that you can, deprive yourself of fat and protein and have healthy hormones. End of story. And you would be surprised about how much fat you need. You need a lot more fat than you're imagining. A lot of the times I always tell my clients, eat a lot of fat. And then when I find out what their idea, when they'll say I eat a lot of fat, when I find out what their idea of that is, I'm like, oh my gosh, no, that's not even nearly enough fat. We've been programmed to fear fat. So it takes sometimes a lot of undoing that. And one of the modules in the Delish Diet Starter Kit is to actually help to deprogram you from those thoughts and fears about basically dying of a heart attack by having too much fat and cholesterol. All that, requires, some support to deprogram your brain from thinking that, your feelings from worrying about that. And that is included in the program. One or more of your parents has diabetes. Like I said in one of the videos, my biological father is a bona fide diabetic, insulin shooting up diabetic. Okay. If you have a family background that's African American, Alaskan Native, American Indian, Asian American, Hispanic, Latino, or Pacific Islander American, you'll also be more susceptible to this because your ancestors have not had, you haven't had generations and generations of people who have been eating white rice and white sugar, okay, and white bread, like somebody of European or a Caucasian ancestry would have more resistance, okay, to being able to handle that. And my background is Métis, so I would have naturally that tendency, plus of course my biological father having diabetes. Okay, so now there's some more advanced symptoms of insulin resistance. Okay, if you have fatty liver, you've been diagnosed with gestational diabetes, which is basically is diabetes in pregnancy. Something that you need to know about stuff that comes up when you're pregnant. Because pregnancy is a time of stress, it's actually showing you what you're going to be susceptible to later in life. Okay. Abdominal obesity. Okay. Why do some people have skinny legs and big bellies? Okay. It's because they have massive cortisol, adrenal stuff going on, and then an insulin resistance is bound up in that. And what happens is you start to put the fat around your abdomen, okay? And then you start to break all that high cortisol causes breakdown of muscle in your body. And so you start losing muscle in other areas of your body. Elevated blood sugar, okay, obvious. Acne and large pores on the face. This was something that was new to me because actually I've always had large pores on my face, like noticeable, like people have asked me about it. I thought that was a really interesting one. So I've had this tendency for a long time because I remember this like since I was a teenager. Polycystic ovarian syndrome. Okay. Talked a lot about the connection between hormones and insulin resistance. And basically insulin resistance can set off the hormonal imbalance, okay? As well as the nutrient deficiencies and the stress in your life. Scalp hair loss in women in the male pattern. So if you're starting to lose hair like this, okay, or here, that's a sign of insulin resistance. Getting skin tags on your body. And of course, swelling, okay? So swollen ankles would be one such type of swelling, but it also happens in the face. Okay, so you don't have to live with these symptoms. You don't have to be hungry all day and having to cook food constantly and, just accepting that you have too much weight and living with all of those conditions. You can do something about it. So contrary to popular belief, you don't have to be a sugaraholic on the standard North American diet, binging on candy, Big Macs, and Slurpees to become insulin resistant. You just have to be someone who's burdened by the stressors of modern society, of which sugar is one of them. So it's not your fault that you're fat, okay? You've likely been doing everything the diet gurus tell you to, okay? But it's not gonna work, okay, long-term, if at all. You just didn't know that your symptoms of hypoglycemia were a big deal, and you've just learned to probably deal with it like I have. You may have been told that your thyroid is fine and all your symptoms are in your head. Okay. There are many, many people who this is a little bit of an aside, but just like when you have hypoglycemia, you don't have that one day and then the next day you have diabetes, you slowly decline towards diabetes, right? Same thing with your thyroid. It's not like you have a perfectly optimal, healthy metabolism one day and then like, boom, out of thin air, the condition of thyroid disorder drops into your body and like now your thyroid's not working properly. And, it comes from this like way of thinking of our body like it's a machine, like the parts just break, okay? Well, they don't just break, they slowly wear down, right? As you don't treat your body the way it needs to be treated. So again, if you've been on a really low fat diet for a long time and you haven't been getting the proper nutrition and your diet is toxic and your liver is sluggish, it affects your thyroid and then it slows your metabolism down. And there's many symptoms that you can have that your thyroid is starting to slow that are not a bona fide thyroid condition that requires medication. So even if you have the symptoms of thyroid, but you haven't been diagnosed as having thyroid, you still need to support your thyroid so that you stop that progress and don't in the future have to be diagnosed with a thyroid condition. So it's actually, if you know it and you've gone to the doctor and they said, no, you're fine, that's great. Because then now at least you don't have to have that, named disease in your head that can actually stop you from healing because we start to identify with these diagnoses. You may have been told to eat most of the food groups that actually make you fat and to avoid the food groups that keep you nourished and skinny, okay? So all those, traditional foods of our ancestors, the foods that are nutrient dense and have protein and fat in them, those are the ones that actually keep you skinny, and those are the ones that we've been told to avoid. And we've been told instead to replace it with all these complex carbohydrates that actually cause you to gain weight. You've probably tried to exercise your butt off, but it just keeps getting bigger, okay? So again, that would be a sign of high cortisol, depleted adrenals, and so the effective diet and exercise has the opposite effect of a person when they have that level of hormone imbalance. You might have reduced your calories and now you're eating like a bird just to avoid gaining weight, never mind losing any, okay? That would be another symptom of that same thing. And you've been brainwashed to equate getting thin with health. So you think that you can lose your weight to get healthy, but that is not how it works, okay? You can lose the weight and force it off, and that is not gonna change the health of your body. You change the health of your body, and then your body does what it wants to do, which is to actually release the weight if it's not necessary. But if your body is holding on to weight, it's because it wants to be fat and it finds it necessary for different reasons. One of them can be that you have too many toxins. You're consuming too many toxins through your food or through your, the products that you put on your body. and your body is actually storing those toxins in your fat cells. So it's not going to let you let go of that fat because it doesn't want to dump a whole bunch of toxins into your bloodstream. Okay. So stress is a major cause of insulin resistance, and sugar is one of those stresses, but eating too much sugar is actually really easy to address. Okay. So here's what you have to do. First of all, to heal insulin resistance, you have to cut out all white sugar and all natural sugars of any kind. So no maple syrup, no coconut sugar, no honey, no agave, none of these things that we could think of as natural and we can find in the health food store. Okay. You have to make sure that you read labels of everything. Okay. It should have no chemicals added and no sugar added. Okay. Ideally, you don't actually eat anything that is in a box. And that's part of the Delish diet, is to actually just eat whole foods. But you need to go literally get off this training, go into your cupboards and look and see what are the ingredients in the foods that you eat, and at least make sure there's no extra sugar added, okay? Compost that food. No sweet fruit, okay? So some of you are eating way too much fruit. It's better that you eat the low glycemic fruit that has less sugar in it, like berries, for example, versus a mango or pineapple. No juice at all, not even freshly pressed juice, okay? Obviously, there are benefits to, freshly pressed juice because of the concentration of nutrients, but that's also a concentration of sugar, and especially with taking the fiber out, not good for insulin resistance. Okay, avoiding too much protein. This is something that people are not familiar with generally, and that is, there is something called gluconeogenesis that happens in the body. It's where the body takes protein that is not needing to be used and turns it into sugar, okay? Because there's only so much protein that your body can use at one time. So if you eat more sugar more protein in a meal than you need, it can actually be turned to sugar. So how I discovered that was every time I'd eat a whole chicken breast, I would automatically have a blood sugar crash after. And I was thinking, what on earth is going on here? I'm eating a protein-rich food. I was like eating a chicken breast with creme fraiche on it and vegetables on the side, and then suddenly I'm, my blood sugar is crashing after this meal. And I'm thinking I'm eating like the perfect blood sugar balancing meal because I have all this good protein and good fat. But it turns out that that's too much protein for me, for my weight and height and my activity level. So I've learned that I have to have a half a breast of chicken to not get that effect. And, it had me confused for a while. I thought maybe I had a food sensitivity or something to chicken, but it turns out that it was too much protein. Okay. I'll also have that happen if I, say, for example, eat those little cheese puffs. They're like Parmesan puffs, or, the cheese has been dehydrated. You can get it at Starbucks. If I eat too much of that as well, because again, it's so high in protein, I'll notice that effect. I'll literally feel like my blood sugar is crashing. Okay. So you have to avoid also the things that we consider healthy, like complex carbohydrates, okay? So you have to eliminate even sources, concentrated sources of digestive sugar, meaning that while there's no sugar added to the food, once you start chewing it and your enzymes start to break it down, it's actually being broken down into sugar, okay? That's what a carbohydrate is, okay? So that's what I mean by digestive sugar. So that would include potatoes, yams, bread, lentils, rice, and quinoa. So you have to really understand that starches are digestive sugars. Okay? So, and we've been told to eat 7 servings a day of complex carbohydrates. So if you can imagine, if you had insulin resistance and you were following like the Canada Food Guide or the USA food pyramid, that you would not be able to lose that weight if you were eating like that, right? So if you have insulin resistance, you can't tolerate even healthy complex carbs. And the reason why is because essentially once they are digested, they are sugar. Now, it's not that they are like, I'm not demonizing them. I'm not saying that you should never have them or that you can never have them again. I'm just saying for where you are right now, they are something that you need to avoid until you bring your blood sugar back into balance, so that you can tolerate them again, okay? And that's an essential part of this program, is not to keep you off of complex carbs for the rest of your life. It's to bring you back into balance, okay? And once you're back into balance, then you can figure out your own level of tolerance for complex carbs. Okay, so your body breaks starch down into sugar. because starch is actually glucose. It's just sugar molecules strung together. And that glucose becomes what we call blood sugar. So having a starchy or a sugary diet is the same thing when you have insulin resistance. Okay, so at any one time, you only need less than 1 teaspoon of sugar in your blood. Okay, 1 teaspoon. So anytime you eat more than 1 teaspoon at a meal from the mix of the sugars you eat and the complex carbs you eat, then you are having to force your pancreas to secrete insulin to bring your blood sugar down. So you're essentially overworking your insulin. We live in a weird time where there is just way more sugar in general, and we have access to way more food than our ancestors had. So we are way overworking our insulin. It's some say that it's not even meant to really be balancing our blood sugar level. It's sort of like a last-ditch effort that it's being forced to do that because it does have other roles in the body. But by government standards, a healthy amount of carbs is 300 grams a day, and that equals 1.5 cups of sugar a day. Okay. So insulin was to be used not for regular blood sugar control, but just for emergencies. But now in today's society, we use it all day long because we constantly eat, and we're eating foods that are high in sugar or starches. Okay. We're supposed to be regulating our sugar through glucagon, which is produced in the liver and manufactured by protein. Okay, so if you were, say, a hunter and gatherer, you would not have access to all these complex starchy carbs and spend, your whole day cooking in the kitchen. You would be eating more animal foods, right? You'd be hunting, and you might be eating berries. And actually, all of the foods that we eat right now, they have all been hybridized in a sense that they've changed from their original form. Like if you go, I should have done this for this seminar, but I think what I'll do is I'll put the little training on this in the program. But like, if you look at what a banana looks like today versus a banana in its original form, and this is with all fruits and vegetables, we've changed them so much. They have a lot more sugar in them now because we've tried to do that to make them taste better and be more palatable. Okay, so we have not evolved to be able to handle even the natural sugars that are in our diet without stressing our pancreas to produce more insulin. Okay, so we should not have to knock it down after every meal, okay? And basically the body can produce its own sugar by converting protein into sugar. So that is, if you were having trouble, if you're a caveman and you couldn't find berries or anything that was, a yummy carb, then you'd be fine because you could actually make sugar through just eating more protein. Okay, so if we're constantly using our insulin to knock down our blood sugar after every single meal, that leads to insulin resistance, okay, and it makes for an overworked pancreas because the body is not happy with that much insulin. Okay, the body wants the blood sugar to stay in a very narrow range, and insulin has other jobs, so we don't want to keep it overextended with constantly managing blood sugar. Okay. So here's some of the things that it does. It modifies the activity of enzymes. Okay. It builds muscle following sickness or injury. It actually manages the synthesis of lipids. It breaks down proteins and fats. That's what you want, right? But you don't want it to be in a way that is stopping it from happening, because there's everything. It's like everything turns into its opposite when you have too much of it. This is a principle of Chinese medicine. So instead of helping to break down lipids, it's actually causing you to store them. The uptake of amino acids and potassium into the cells cannot take place without insulin. It also manages the excretion of sodium and fluid volume in the urine, and of course enhances learning and memory in the brain. Okay, so what is normal blood sugar? So like I said earlier, normal blood sugar represents less than 1 teaspoon of sugar dissolved in the blood. Okay. According to Dr. Michael R. Eads, and I have a little link to his website there, Protein Power, 4.95 grams of sugar in the blood of a person is just short of being pre-diabetic, and that equals a little less than 1 teaspoon. okay? But of course we eat way more than that a day. So or even with most meals, right? So every time you eat something with more than that, insulin has to work to bring your blood sugar down. And in other words, put it somewhere else, okay? So if your liver storage capacity is full and the muscles don't need that sugar, well then guess where it goes? It goes to your fat cells where it generates more lipid, okay? So the only foods that don't stimulate insulin are protein, fat, and non-starchy carbs have less of an effective stimulating insulin. Okay, so as long as you don't eat the starchy carbs and you eat foods rich in protein, fat, and round out your plate with non-starchy carbs, you're actually going to be able to not stimulate your insulin, and that means you can access the stored fat, because that is the problem. It's when you have too much insulin, you are not able to access that stored fat, okay? So you have to keep your blood sugar normalized by not consuming sugar and starch. And then that way, your body will actually be able to start accessing the fat that you have in your fat cells and be able to break that down for energy. But it won't do that if the sugar is there. So when you're eating that sugar, it's just not possible for your fat to be broken down. So there has to be times where you avoid sugar altogether and eat in a certain way that will balance your blood sugar so that you can actually access the stored fat. So let's look at what is the digestive sugar content of these foods that are considered healthy, okay? So remember that you only need less than 1 teaspoon of sugar at any one time, okay? And when you eat more sugar than that, you are engaging insulin. So here are some common foods that are considered healthy foods. Obviously the white bread isn't, but I just put that in there to compare it for you. And this list in particular, I got from the nutrition data site. Their carbs of the bread were actually lower than a lot of other brands of bread that I have looked at, the carb content. So this is even being moderate. But you can see here on this list, just at a glance, that all of these foods are way more sugar than the amount that you actually need for optimal amounts of blood sugar, okay? So 2.8 teaspoons for whole wheat bread, one slice of white bread, 3 teaspoons, a mango, 3.2, a banana, 4.6, a cup of orange juice is 5 teaspoons, okay? A lot of you coming to this call health conscious would already know you wouldn't be eating orange juice because it's high in sugar, okay? But what about all these other foods that are totally considered healthy foods, like lentils, quinoa, yams, brown rice, chickpeas, okay? Look at how much sugar. 8 teaspoons of sugar, 9 teaspoons of sugar, and a baked potato is 12 teaspoons of sugar, and corn, 25 teaspoons of sugar. Okay, so if you're eating corn chips, well, that explains a lot. Okay, so you can see here that these foods that we recommended that we eat a lot of that are supposed to be healthy foods are full of sugar and will cause weight gain, or they will prevent the ability to lose weight. Okay. In contrast to the carbohydrates that I'm recommending that you eat, look at the difference of how much sugar is in, say, 1 cup of radish, 0.8 of a teaspoon of sugar, 1 cup of brown mushrooms, 0.8 teaspoons of sugar, etc. As you look at that, you can see that you can eat these foods and not stimulate too much insulin, so you would actually be able to access your stored fat. The highest on here is broccoli, which is 2.4 teaspoons for 1 cup. But as you can see, the majority of them are actually less than 1 teaspoon of sugar. So they're not going to stimulate insulin because your blood sugar, you actually need some of that sugar. Okay, so you're basically, the point is not to eat a low carb diet. The point is to eat the right kind of carbs. Okay. So basically, to summarize what I've shared with you, you want to emphasize protein and fat, but making sure that you're not eating too much protein for yourself based on your body weight, your height, and your activity level. And then you round that out with as much non-starchy vegetables as your body desires, okay? So on this diet, I don't give you any, anything to count, okay? There's nothing to count. You just eat within the guidelines of the foods that I recommend, and then you let your body tell you how much or how little of the foods that are considered allowed on the diet, okay? Now, for most people, it sounds a little boring. Just eat meat and vegetables, basically, okay? And that would be great, actually. If that's all you ate was non-starchy vegetables and meat, then you would lose weight really, really fast, and it would be healthy, okay? However, for most people, that's boring. And the other negative side of it is you would start to go into a cleanse mode pretty quickly. And that always doesn't necessarily feel good. And sometimes if your liver is not in the best condition right now, that cleansing would be too fast for you, right? Because you don't want to cleanse faster than your liver can keep up with detoxifying. So how we help ourselves to eat this lifestyle, but also feel like we're getting the most satiating, delicious foods ever and having more options than we've ever had before, is with some of the extras that are allowed because they are actually pretty low carb foods. So obviously bacon. I mean, yum, who doesn't want to eat bacon? Bacon is at the top of the list of foods that people are told is not healthy for them. And it's perfectly fine. You just want to get the best quality bacon that you can possibly find from preferably a grass-fed farmer. Butter, yes, you can eat butter, okay? And you can eat as much of it as you want. There'll be a time I find that in the beginning when you eat like this, you eat a lot more fat, and it sort of like, tapers off over time, because if you've been someone who's been avoiding fats for so long, your body is just going to be like, oh my God, give me more, give me more, give me more. And that's totally fine as long as you have the digestion, the capacity to digest the fat, which is part of the training that you'll get in the Delish diet. I have tips for you to help you to increase your ability to digest fat so that you don't have trouble digesting the foods on this program. And the beauty of it is when you eat fat and protein-rich foods, it satisfies you. So you not only balance your blood sugar, but those cravings for the sweets go away because you're so satisfied by these rich, delicious, creamy foods. Okay, yes, you can have peanut butter, you can have chocolate, yay! In fact, I have a recipe for a homemade chocolate bar, and you can eat as much as you want of it. It's pretty much all just cocoa and coconut oil. So another thing is that coconut oil is stimulating for your metabolism, so that's really great. You can have whipping cream. Of course, you can have vegetables and meat. You can have nuts and seeds, and you can turn all of these foods into your favorite comfort foods, right? So we have got recipes for cheesecake, ice cream, pizza, pancakes, waffles, even bread, okay? Of course, they're not gonna be made of, wheat or any flours, but I do have recipes for breads that are as close as you can possibly get to bread recipes, nice and dense, and it gives you the satisfaction of those foods without actually eating the high carbs, okay? I've got like recipes for things like flax wraps, if you like wraps, and other ideas of more things that you can buy at the health food store if you don't want to spend a lot of time cooking, okay? You can also use almond flours or coconut flour and things like that to make it. So I've got recipes for muffins, cakes, cookies, and even dainties and all of your Christmas favorites, for example, to make it so that you never have to feel like you are deprived in any way, okay? So for example, this Christmas, on the dainty menu was New York slice or enamel bars, Spore bars. What else did I do? Shortbread cookies, Christmas cake, almond roca bars. I'm sure there's a few more, but basically that I ate all those things at Christmas just like anyone else, but I made them in a way so that they fit inside the parameters of this diet so that I could still not raise my blood sugar, and my hormones love it, right? Because it's the base of a lot of these recipes are coconut oil. So you actually can get healthier eating foods that you would think are not healthy for you when they're actually built on the right ingredients. And that's of course provided inside the course, recipes for those things. So here's the thing, fat doesn't make you fat, sugar does, right? Like I said before, the fat is not going to stimulate insulin. So it's not going to make you fat. In fact, fat has so many things that it's like your body uses it for different things. So your body's going to use it to do something. So when you eat the right quality of fats, they're not going to make you fat. You want to avoid the processed fats that are in things like potato chips, for example. Okay. And even still, when you eat the potato chip, it's not the poor quality oils necessarily that are making you fat. It's the starches in the potato. Okay. But of course, you should still avoid poor quality fats for your liver's sake. Okay. But how are you to know? I mean, you couldn't have. It's not like this information is like out there, right? And the diet gurus are certainly not telling you that. They're trying to get you to exercise and diet and count calories and all those kind of things, okay? So you don't want to try to lose the weight to get healthy. You have to get healthy to lose the weight. And then that way it just happens naturally without you having to try. Okay? So if you right now have extra weight, it's your body trying to tell you something. It's your body trying to cry out for you, for your attention. Okay? So if you're ready to listen, then you get to have permanent weight loss as a result of healing the underlying health imbalances, not by dieting. Okay? So the problem is not that you're too fat, that's just a symptom. Okay? Whereas our culture tells you that your health problems are because you're too fat. No, you're too fat because of your health problems. So you don't need to be diagnosed with insulin resistance or one of its named diseases before you do something about it. What you need is a proper dieta. Okay? So until the 13th century, the word diet actually meant way of life. The word stems from the Greek word dieta, referring to not only the food one consumes, but their daily habits as well. So that is basically what the Delish diet is about. It's about adopting a different lifestyle. You have to have a paradigm shift about how to choose food that will make it so that you just automatically are geared towards choosing the right foods that are going to support you to stay healthy and then maintain your weight. And this way you can take your health into your own hands, right? Because it's not just about being thin. You want to have health so you can have high energy, right? If right now you don't have energy, a big reason is because of insulin resistance. When you're not in a state of balance, your blood sugar is going up and down. How can you possibly maintain your energy? Like I remember, oh my gosh, before I started eating this way, I would have to have a nap every single afternoon. And I didn't notice that it was related to hypoglycemia until I started to do what's called eat-up days while on this diet. So every once in a while, I mean, when they talk about eat-up days, they say you should do it once a week. But to be honest with you, I don't see the payoff. So I didn't even do it that much. I'd forget about it. But on the days I would do it, I would eat carbs. So one day a week, I would focus on just eating whatever carbs I wanted. So I would go make it my day where I treat myself, go to a restaurant, and I would have lunch at a restaurant. And then I would immediately feel like I needed to drive home and go to sleep. Meanwhile, I had planned to stay at a coffee shop or something like that and work. And I started to see this pattern. And then I realized, oh, okay, here it is. It's basically another symptom of hypoglycemia, okay? So what's gonna happen now if you take a quick fix and just go on another medical or fad diet? Well, you're gonna lose some weight fast, and then your willpower is gonna run out. You're gonna feel starving, and you'll gain it all back and more, because that's the pattern, right? I mean, I don't think anybody could really argue that. It's just the way it is. We've all experienced it. They've done many studies and research on it, and that's just the thing. Unless you make a lifestyle change, diets don't work, okay? You need a dieta, which is a lifestyle change. It includes the food, but it's also includes a shift of your paradigm, okay? If you do this, you're gonna go on a fad diet. You're gonna reinforce the belief that losing weight is hard, okay? It's not hard. Part of the process of moving forward is deciding right now that it is possible for you to lose weight. Okay? If you decide to go on a diet, you'll end up binge eating after the diet, and that's partly why the weight gain happens as well. Because when you're on a diet, you decrease your nutrition stores. Okay? So that throws off your hormones. But just at the end of the day, when you are deficient in nutrition, it's going to make you have cravings. So you're going to start wanting other foods because you're trying to get something from them. So for example, would be if you are deficient in essential fatty acids because you've been avoiding fats, well, then guess what? You're going to crave potato chips because that's maybe the only thing in your diet that your body associates with a essential fatty acid. But you're never going to get filled up by that because those fats have been damaged. So you're going to stay in a state of deficiency and still continue to crave them. So you never feel satisfied by one bag of chips, right? You may notice that if you have those cravings only along with your menstruation, that's another good sign that it's hormonally driven issues going on there. You're going to be more toxic, burden your liver and make it sluggish and depress your metabolism if you go on one of these medical or fad diets, because they often have not real food on them, right? But what we're doing here is learning how to eat real food. Whereas these diets, it's like protein shakes and all sorts of garbage, those protein bars and things like that, that are basically full of ingredients that are not real whole foods, and then they become actually a burden to your liver, okay? You can actually end up with conditions like, I spoke to this one woman who she Facebooked me, messaged me saying that she wanted to know about liver cleansing because she had pancreatitis, which her doctor said was due to having a sludgy liver. Okay, so she basically had toxins in her bile that were causing irritation to her pancreas, and this was from doing one of these diets, which doesn't have the right quality of foods on it, right? So yes, it was a diet that increased your protein, which will boost your metabolism so you can lose weight on it. But if it's all poor quality foods, then you also can damage your liver. Okay. And then once you've damaged your liver and your thyroid are connected. So your liver regulates your thyroid. So if your liver is sluggish, then you're going to depress your metabolism. Okay. You'll feel sluggish, depressed, and down on yourself because you have failed yet again. Okay. So no more fad diets. You have to decide that this is it and you're going to make this work. Okay. Instead, what you can do is heal your weight at the level of root cause. Okay, so you can get healthier than you've ever been, have more energy, be more happy, be lighter on your feet. Okay, one of the things about losing weight in this way that you have to be aware of is that it's not necessarily a quick fix. Because we're actually addressing the underlying imbalances, what happens is sometimes other symptoms that you have fall away first before the weight does. And that's your body prioritizing what it thinks is the most important, okay? But you get good side effects when you do this. Even if you're just doing it for your weight, for superficial purposes, you get good side effects for your health, and that's great, okay? The focus is on nourishment, okay? So we're just letting the body let the weight go effortlessly without us having to try. Okay, so you're just focusing on eating really nutrient-dense foods and keeping your carbs low, not by counting them, but by eating the foods that I've recommended, which are the non-starchy vegetables as your source of carbs. Okay? You're never going to have to worry about your weight again, because one of the processes of this is for you to actually really make an experiment out of your own body. So as you're doing this, watch and see what happens. Okay, so you might, as you do this, you might find that you get to your ideal weight, then you can start to see how much carbs you can tolerate. Okay, and then you have control. You know what works for you and what doesn't. Okay, and how to eat in a way that allows you to eat. Go out once a week with your friends and not have to worry about eating a special diet. Okay, you'll find out how you can do that. And then you'll never worry about your weight again, because you'll be really in control of how your body works, because you'll understand it more. It's really, really important to get connected into those symptoms that your body gives you, because it is trying to speak to you. So if you say, okay, body, like, I'm listening now, show me what works and what doesn't work for me, then you know exactly how to eat so that you can maintain your body weight. You can eat what you want and never feel deprived again. Okay, so you eat this way as long as you need to get the results that you want. But like I said, you can start to reintroduce starchy carbs later and see how much you can tolerate without having to gain weight, okay, or start getting hypoglycemic symptoms. And you could be watching this because you were interested in the sugar part of it, because you don't have because you know you have hypoglycemia, but it's not manifesting in weight gain. because that's very true. There are people who have insulin resistance and have other negative symptoms of it, but not the weight gain. So this is important no matter what, is if you have insulin resistance, this is the way to eat to bring your blood sugar back into balance. Okay? You're going to eat better than you ever have in your life, right? Because you've probably been afraid to eat cheesecake, and you've probably been afraid to eat too much chocolate, and you've probably been afraid to eat too much fat or too much bacon or too much cheese or whatever, too much ice cream. But now you get to eat it. And I'm not going to tell you how much that you can eat. You're just going to stay within the parameters that I've given you. And you literally just stock your kitchen with the right foods and eat as your body tells you from those particular foods, okay? And then you get to feel like you're eating the most decadent foods that are out there, being totally satiated, having lots of energy because of the balanced blood sugar and the fats that provide tons of energy, which is really great. Feel stable. Your immune system is going to get so much better because you're going to have the optimal levels of protein and no sugar. Sugar actually depresses your immune system, especially if you eat like straight sugar off the spoon, like some white sugar. It's actually been shown to depress your immune system for 4 hours, your white blood cells, to the level of somebody who has leukemia. Okay, so if immune system issues, you're getting colds and flus all the time, this is a huge help in that area. I have to tell you, in the last year, I've been eating like this for 14 months now. And I only had one cold, and it was in the middle of the summer when my husband took some peaches off our peach tree in the backyard, and he made peach pie. And I thought, oh, well, okay, I'm just going to eat this because you know, it's like our peach tree, and he just made pie. Like, my God, how could I not have it? And I got a cold, and I haven't had one at all in those 16 months, other than that day where I started eating some sugar. Okay. And my family, who does not eat a diet the way I do, they eat rice and they eat whatever, they eat potatoes and the starchy carbs. They're not avoiding starchy carbs. They definitely had colds and flus. And of course they go to grandma's, and, you know, at school they have treats that I personally would never allow in our house. And sure enough, you know, that's right after Halloween, it's right after Christmas is when everybody gets sick, because it's the sugar, it depresses your immune system. Okay. You're going to let the eating be easy and a non-issue, right? As long as you have the right foods in your house, okay, you're just going to be able to, you know, use what's there, right? And then it's not a fight of willpower. Okay, so how I do it in my house is I have the carb cupboard that will be the rice and the potatoes and things that I won't eat. It's actually down low and the door's shut. Okay, so if you look in my kitchen, I have some cupboards that are open that you can see, and it's all the stuff that I would eat, and the stuff that I wouldn't eat is down there below, so I don't look at it. Okay, but maybe your whole family is going to eat like this, and then you can go for it, and, you know, just get everything out of your kitchen that's not the foods that are recommended for this Delish diet program. Okay? So you're going to be able to just eat and whatever you want, really, and not worry about it, right? Because essentially, if this will work for you, even if you ate this way 6 days a week, and on day 7 you had an eat up day where you let yourself go out for dinner or something like that, okay? It's not going to wreck the progress of the program. So you don't have to give up things like social gatherings and things like that, where people are eating differently than you. And you don't have to bring your own food either. You can just be like, that's my eat up day. Okay, so best of all, it's easy. Okay, let's make deprivation history for you. You don't need to count calories or carbs or fat grams. You don't need to exercise. You don't need to give up coffee. You don't have to give up dairy. You don't have to give up meat. You don't have to give up any of the rich, creamy, sweet foods you love. And you don't have to give up any of your favorite comfort foods. Now, I will tell you that there are 2 ingredients that I include in this diet that give you the sweet flavor without eating sugar. And one of them is stevia, and the other is something called erythritol, which is fermented sugar. Neither of them have any calories, and they don't have any impact on your blood sugar level, and they've both been studied to determine that they are different than artificial sweeteners, and that they don't actually affect your blood sugar, because artificial sweeteners will actually cause you to gain weight. Okay? And I basically have provided recipes using those ingredients so that you don't have to give up having the treats, okay? Because if you were to decide that you weren't going to use either of those two things, then this diet wouldn't be as extravagant, right? It would, sure, you could have the rich fatty foods and creamy foods, but not the sweet ones, okay? And most of you are probably coming to this because sweet is a huge issue for you and you crave it a lot. And I know that you wouldn't be successful if I were to say absolutely no, like essentially erythritol is something that you couldn't necessarily like just, get in nature. You can't grow it in the ground, right? It's made with sugar, but then the sugar has been fermented. So it's something that I feel like I don't need to be necessarily a purist about this, that I want you to get the results. What's the outcome I want you to have? I want you to eat all these good, healthy foods and not feel deprived so you can make this lifestyle change. And so what I've discovered is that in the beginning, to get off your sweet cravings, having foods, in particular, the Skinny Bomb recipes that I provide for you, which are basically little treats that are made of either butter or coconut oil or cream cheese that are sweetened with erythritol or stevia. They really help you get through the sugar cravings, okay? Now, you don't have to include those foods in this diet. Some people are super purist about it and they will only have maybe like say the tinctured stevia that's not processed, and that's fine. But for the most people, I believe that this is the way that will actually get you off the sugar. So we're going to do whatever it takes. And to be honest with you, even if I were to, like basically the point where I get to my ideal body weight, okay, so I'm still losing at this point, I will not go back to sugar, right? If I'm going to make a treat, I'm always going to use erythritol. There's no reason not to. So the erythritol can be found in health food stores and even at Superstore. There's some people want to avoid some of the brands because they're made with corn. Okay, it's the sugar from corn. If that's a concern for you, then you can get the Organic Zero one, which is it's actually from a company that does make sugar, and they do take their cane sugar and they ferment it to make erythritol. And it's a great alternative to sugar that's not artificial, and it is not unhealthy for you, and it doesn't cause gastric upset like many sugar alcohols that are out there. Like xylitol, for example, is another one that I would not recommend to bake or cook with because it is really hard on the gut. It's something that is extracted from a bark, which you would never eat, right? Whereas we do eat, you can like get a cane of cane sugar, right? And suck the cane juice out of it. It's like starting with a real food that people would actually eat. Whereas a sugar is out of a bark, that we were never meant to eat that. So I don't recommend the xylitol. But basically what you need to have is the resources to be successful with this. I've given you everything you need to know to literally get off this training and go make this happen for yourself. But for most people, you forget what you learn, and it really helps to have that support, that guidance, and more trainings to keep you inspired and on the path, and all the recipes that will help you to feel like you're eating decadently, rather than having to, research them yourself or make up your own recipes. Okay. So here's the only thing that you have to give up, okay, to get results in this program. The mindset that eating healthy is hard, bland, and boring, and requires willpower, okay? If that's your perspective right now, you got to give that up because this is totally different. It's not going to be like that. It's not going to be hard. It's not going to be bland. It's not going to be boring. And it's not going to require willpower, okay? You're going to have many delicious, satisfying, decadent foods at your fingertips that it'll be hard to believe that you're even on a so-called diet because you'll be eating more luxuriously than ever. Letting go of the belief that it's personally hard for you to lose weight. I think what happens is when we do too many diets and we don't get success with them, what happens is that we end up having a mindset block to being able to lose weight. And so what happens is then we actually don't take the opportunities that we have in front of us to actually lose the weight. So just getting over that belief and trusting that if you're here listening to this training, that you're in the right place because you were guided to it. The belief that your body's working against you by craving foods that are making you fat, you have to give that one up, because your body's not trying to work against you. It's just trying to compensate for what you're doing to it, and it's trying to speak to you. Okay, so it really like loving your body and, you know, saying, okay, I hear you, something is not right, we're gonna make it right, okay? Giving your body love instead of hate is really, really important. It's the only way that you can release it, right? Because it's like your body can even go into resistance against your mind if you're not sending it positive thoughts and feelings. Okay? You have to give up the belief that calories and more exercise are the answer, and that your problem is a lack of discipline and laziness. I think by the end of this training, you probably have been convinced of that, now that you understand more about how your body works when it comes to letting go of the weight. And finally, you have to give up the belief that you don't currently eat too much sugar, because it's clear that you do, if your body is not letting you access your stored fat. Okay? So here's how the Delish diet works. So we're gonna start by getting you into the right mindset, okay, so that you don't feel like you have to use willpower, and help you learn how to not only trust your body again, but listen to what it's trying to tell you. Next, we're going to make sure that you get grounded down into eating the right quality whole foods. Okay, this alone can result in 10 to 15 pounds of weight loss if you don't already currently eat clean. Okay, and also the first module is basically all about this. It's called Revamp Your Kitchen, and basically walking you through your kitchen, helping you to upgrade the quality of the foods that are in it, so that even if your family does not eat this way with you, the foods that they eat, I'm also sharing with you how to upgrade the quality of that. So taking this training, this course, is not just going to benefit you, but it's going to benefit the health of your whole family. Okay, next, in the next module of the course, we have a training called the 12 Diet and Lifestyle Pillars of the Delish Diet to help you heal your insulin resistance permanently. So I walk you through 12 tips of specifically ways to eat that will help you to balance your blood sugar. Okay? You'll also get a grocery list, handouts that include what carbs are allowed, which ones aren't. You'll get cookbooklets of comfort foods, video demonstrations and trainings on how to get past those plateaus that are inevitable when you run out of patience. Sometimes you just need to like kickstart things a little bit so that you have that, you know, that resiliency and encouragement to keep going. So the starter kit gives you everything that you need to be successful with this program. You can absolutely do this. Okay? There's nothing difficult about this at all. It's literally a matter of learning a different way of thinking about food and making a commitment to eating within the guidelines until you get the results that you're looking for. And you can rest assured that this way of eating is probably exactly what you need to do for all of your other health issues as well. So it has like multiple benefits on all levels for your health. And you know, one of the reasons why I love that, you know, doing this work of helping you lose the weight is that it comes from a place of like trying to improve yourself, right? To be the best person that you can be, to have the highest energy that you can have, so that you can do the work that you know you're meant to do in this world, so that you stop holding yourself back from being who you really are, right? Because there's a lot of stories we tell ourselves about the things we can't do until we lose the weight, right? So this has a benefit on so many levels to your life, and it, in contrast to, you know, trying to eat healthy to avoid disease, right? That's like it's a negative perspective. It's actually holding disease in mind. So what you want to do is hold the perfect picture that you have in your mind about the vision you have for the body and the health and the energy that you want to have. Hold that in mind, and then eat in this way as a way of loving yourself and giving back to your body for all that it's done, for as far as it's taken you up to this point. Okay. So best of all, you get to eat like a queen and more luxurious than ever. You do not have to give up the rich, creamy, sweet foods you love. Okay, my kids will verify that my cheesecake is yummy. Okay, you don't have to figure it all out by yourself. Okay? You've got me and a community of supportive women by your side in our private Delish Diet Facebook group. Okay? You'll get access to the new recipes as I create them using the Delish Diet friendly sweeteners. Again, they're naturally derived and non-toxic. Okay. You could do without them, yes, but why would you want to? And the cookbooklets have recipes for the holidays and like I said before, all the comfort foods that you can't live without. And you know, you want to make sure that you do join that Facebook forum because I post out the recipes long before the cookbooklets are done, right? Because it takes a long time to format all these things. So you get them as I'm creating them, which is really nice. And it's really, I welcome you to ask me for certain recipes. So if there's something that you miss and you really want, or there's something that you are afraid you can't live without, just ask me and I will make you a healthy version of that food. All right, so here's what's possible for you if you want to come along with us in the Delish diet. You get to be the weight that you want. You get to see your curves again. That's amazing. Okay, once you start having this insulin resistance and you get that waist thing happening, you start to get boxy, right? It's like you get the box in the waist and then the legs and the butt starts to get like skinny as the cortisol gets too high and your muscles start breaking down. No, that is not a natural body shape. That is you getting out of balance. You literally can actually bring your body back into a state where those curves come back, okay? And then of course if you've lost muscle tone, you're gonna actually have to need to exercise to bring that oomph back, right? To your body to get, like, say for example, if your butt's really hanging low, right? You gotta exercise to bring it back up. You get to feel light, you get to feel sexy, okay? You get to wear what you want again, that's my favorite part. You get to have more energy, that's my other favorite part. More focus, and you get to feel happier, okay? So again, if you have the ups and downs of low blood sugar and, you know, hormonal imbalance, it's really hard to maintain that healthy mood and to bring your blood sugar back into balance and take in all those good fats is essential for having the optimal moods and letting go of anxiety and all those things. So you're going to be so pleasantly surprised by all the good side effects that you're going to get when you do decide to come along with us. Okay. Bring me back on the screen. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me in this training, and I welcome you to join us in the Delish Diet program, and I look forward to seeing you when you get there. Bye.